Howdy BookTube! Nikki here, and for this month's wrap up, we are back in my old filming spot in my room. I missed it so much, but it's finally cool enough for me to film in my room in the middle of the day without roasting like a rotisserie chicken. Today, I have my wrap up for all the books that I read in May, and I gotta tell ya, May was a bit average. Bit average. Lots of 3 stars, couple of things that pleasantly surprised me, and one book that was clearly my favorite. I'm gonna go through all the books now, and I'm gonna do a cool thing that I've seen a few people do, which is I'm gonna go from the lowest rated to the highest rated book. To start with, I'm not going to go through these books individually, but I read 6 Animorphs books this month. Not my goal of 8. I need to read 8 of these a month if I'm going to read all 64 by the end of the year. Whoops. I'm really enjoying these. I've rated these all 3 to 5 stars depending on the book. Another thing that made this month really average is that I was supposed to meet Michael Grant this month. He was coming to my city to do a tour. He's the wife of Catherine Applegate, who wrote the Animorphs series. He's the wife? That's awkward. He's the husband of Catherine Applegate, who wrote Animorphs, and he co-created it. And he has an amazing series that I love called the Gone series, and Frontlines, which I haven't read yet and need to. Anyway, his tour got cancelled, which I understand happens, but it's very lame, and I'm sad. On to the other stuff that I read though. The lowest rated book of this month goes to Nevermore by James Patterson. This is the final Maximum Ride book in the series. I finished a series this month. Finished a series! Only have a million more. That's my finishing a series song, because I need to start finishing the series that I've started. This series in particular though was like a thorn in my side. Like I had to finish it, but it was not the most fun experience, mostly because it was just disappointing. The premise of this series is so far up my street. It can knock on my door. I don't even know what I was going for there. It's about these 5 kids who have escaped this horrible school where they were experimented on. They have wings. They're like 2% birds, and they can fly and kick butt, and they're really strong. And it just sounded like a really awesome, fun, sci-fi young adult book. Now for the first 3 books, while the writing wasn't the best, it was fun and I could see where the series was going. But then book 4 happened, and the whole series chucked a U-ey, which is how Australians say pulled a U-turn. Did a U-turn? Turned a U-turn. I don't even know how to say it the proper way. And became this weird environmental weirdness and just kept trying things that weren't working. There is no way that this is the series ending that he imagined. This is further evidenced by the fact, even though this says the final Maximum Ride adventure, he wrote another book after this one, which I'm not going to read because I'm done this series. That's it. I'm finished. So overall, I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Basically, it took the awesome characters that we had and the awesome premise and just boiled it down to an additional character we didn't need, a love triangle, and half the kids just get relegated to this like side character status, and none of those kids get their own resolution type thing. It's all about the main 3 and this love triangle, which, oh my gosh, why would you? After that, I finished another series. I finished the Rebel Belle trilogy by Rachel Hawkins with Lady Renegades. Can we just talk about how awesome this cover is, please? Got my glove, because I'm dainty. Also have a sword, because I'm gonna stab you. Absolutely loved Rebel Belle. Rebel Belle is about this girl named Harper Price, who is like a Southern belle, class president, type A personality with extra manners, and she gets bestowed upon her these paladin guardian powers and gets told that she has to protect this hipster guy she doesn't even like. I loved the first book. It's so funny. The second book, however, was a bit disappointing. It kind of became all the things that I was afraid the first book was going to be. It didn't really have a lot of direction, and it became all about relationships, and he likes you and you like him, and lovey-dovey relationship drama. I was just like, excuse me, if you could just step out of your own heads for a moment. Look, there's like a whole plot happening. So with this one, what I was hoping for was a good conclusion to the series, and that's what I got. I gave it a 3 stars. Felt like it was better than the second book, Miss Mayhem, but didn't quite reach the amazingness of the first book. The ending was a bit predictable. I don't really know how it could have ended another way, and I didn't mind the way that it ended, but it just wasn't as exciting as I would have liked. It is a bit hard though, I think, because the series started out quite funny and light, and obviously lots has happened by the time we get to here, so it's not going to be as like jaunty and hilarious as the first book. I did love the girl power in this book. There's some awesome female friendships happening, and I was very satisfied by the way the series ended, and I did enjoy this book. I reread this month the 3rd Alex Rider book, Skeleton Key by Anthony Horowitz. I love this series. I've read it a million times. It's about a teenage boy who is a reluctant spy, keeps getting blackmailed by MI6 to go on these crazy missions. I picked up this one. I had to think, like, what is the plot of this book? I can't remember at all. And that is because it's the least memorable in my head, and it's probably my least favorite in this series. The mission is actually really similar to the one that he goes on in the first book. I mean, they all have maniacal, like, crazy rich dudes trying to take over the world or whatever. But the villain in this book had a particular vendetta against a politician and had a sidekick who'd look like they'd been sewn back together after being blown apart, which pretty much happens in the first book. To me, this just highlights how much I want to get onto the stuff where it's kind of building on each book and we uncover more of Alex's past. Still enjoyed it, a lot of fun. I love Alex's dry humor. Can I change the battery without moving the camera? The answer is probably no. Now, I didn't film a TBR for May because it was completely consisting of just the next Raven Voice book. Do you know what I didn't finish this month? The next Raven Voice book. My point is that I did pick from my TBR jars, which I usually do in that video, and my TBR pick for comic books was G.I. Joe by Larry Hama. Can we just talk about how Larry Hama has the most like hardcore name? Like Larry Hama. Anyway, this is volume 1, so it's the very first G.I. Joe comics ever. It's probably one of the very first comics that I bought rather than borrowed from the library. I got it from a used book sale, but I put off reading it forever because the artwork looks a little bit like meh. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it. I'm not really sure why I picked it up in the first place, but I was glad that it was my TBR pick because it finally made me pick it up and read it. And you know what? I was pleasantly surprised, actually. This is pretty fun. It's very much like an action film. The only G.I. Joe that I've ever seen is the first movie with Channing Tatum, and everyone was freaking out about the Cobra guy with the mask being Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I think. It turns out you don't really have to know. It's pretty much just these band of G.I. Joes that take on Cobra because everything bad that happens is Cobra's fault. There's like tanks and like robots and like just big scale army guy stuff. You get introduced really early on to all of the characters, and there are a lot, but they're not all in every comic, so you get to know them really well. The dialogue actually struck me in this as being really kind of funny. As I said though, the art is a bit average, got a bit repetitive. There are 10 issues in this and they're all pretty much taking on Cobra. There's one girl character, Scarlet, in the G.I. Joe team, and then there's someone else in Cobra who's also a woman. There's a couple of other ladies kind of scattered in there, but I would have liked more women. I would have liked for them to not have been drawn exactly the same as each other with different coloured hair. Did I enjoy it? Yes, 3 stars. Am I going to pick up more G.I. Joe? Probably not. I was in the comic book shop and I saw that this comic had been re-released, which makes sense because of recent movies and stuff. So I picked up mine, which is not the new fresh version. It's from the 90s, and that is The Death of Superman by Dan Jurgens? I don't know how to pronounce his name. And a bunch of other creators. This is the 7-issue arc that took place in 1992, I think, 1993, I don't know, where Superman died, and it blew everyone's minds because you just killed a superhero. I think now we take it for granted because like every superhero has died. I have The Death of Captain America behind me, I haven't read it yet, but you know, he died. But back then, this was a huge deal. Superman died. They kept him dead for almost a year. It's pretty funny because when this came out, when this was coming out, The Death of Superman, Doomsday, oh my gosh, people freaked out and got on it and they were reading all of the comics. So this event worked in driving up comic book purchases, but when they brought Superman back, people freaked out and were like, dude, you didn't even kill him properly. This is lies. I don't want to read your comics anymore. It actually started going the other way and they drove down sales. Oops. So this is a very important moment in the history of comics. It's a bit of a shame that it's so freaking boring to read. So pretty much this is Doomsday. We don't really have any backstory for him. He doesn't really have a character. He's this really tough, unkillable monster and he goes and just reams through the whole Avengers. He just reams through the entire Justice League, which is not the Justice League that you'd be familiar with. It's not the Justice League I'm familiar with. It's got like Maxima and other characters who I've never read outside of this comic, to be honest. And then in the 7th and final comic, you can kind of guess what happens. At least without the context of any other comics, this was kind of boring to read for the first 6 issues. The 7th issue did hit me in the feels. This did remind me how amazing 90s Lois Lane is. There is Lois Lane casually kicking Superman right in the butt. So overall I gave this 3 stars. Important, but a bit boring, to be honest. My other TBR pick for just regular books this month was 3 by Ted Dekker. This is the thriller. I don't usually read thrillers at all, so it's something a bit different. And it's about this guy named Kevin who's driving home one day and then he gets a call and this dude's like, here is a riddle, confess something or I'll blow up your car. And he's like, what do you want me to confess? And then his car blows up, but he's not in it because otherwise that'd be a very short book. It keeps getting harassed by this guy. He keeps chucking riddles at him, trying to get him to confess this big thing, but Kevin doesn't know what it is and they don't know who he is and they're trying to figure it out so he doesn't kill anybody and blow up stuff. What? To be perfectly honest with you, when I picked this up, I was pretty ready to DNF it if I had to. I was pretty ready to read a bit of it and then just kind of let it go if it wasn't my thing, but that did pull me in. The character of Kevin especially pulled me in, and just the whole story and how it unfolded. I don't know how it compares to other thrillers because, as I said, I don't really read thrillers. So for me, it was a 4 stars. It kept me really engaged the whole time. I was trying to figure it out and I couldn't. I played with the idea of like what people are capable of and good versus evil and sort of stuff, but it wasn't piled on too much. Could have been probably a little bit less. It didn't overtake the story, and I would recommend it if you want to check out a thriller. If you're a reader of many thrillers, this may have familiar elements to you. And now we come to the final book, the 1 5-star book of the month, and that was Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon. Holy crap, this book is shiny. By Naoki Takeuchi. I'm really sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Last month I read volume 1, this is volume 2, and I have to say, this was a huge step up from the first one. The first volume seemed to be establishing a lot of stuff, so it was a bit repetitive and a bit predictable, but this one was like, okay, now that we're done establishing everybody, let me blow your mind. It was so good. I can't believe how much I love this. Also, if you're a fan of Marissa Meyer's Lunar Chronicles series, I knew that she took inspiration from Sailor Moon, but this makes me appreciate her books more, and her books make me appreciate this more. So if you're a fan of Lunar Chronicles, I totally recommend you read this. The art is just perfect all the way through. Tuxedo Mask is bae, and it totally gripped me emotionally and brought me to tears, I'm not gonna lie. So good, can't wait to read the rest of this series. Oh my goodness. So these are all the books that I read this month. What did you read this month? Have you read any of these books? Have you read any of these books? What is your favorite color? Tell me all the things in the comments below. My battery's about to die, so I'm gonna go charge that or something. I'll see you next time. But in the meantime, go read Sailor Moon. Do it. Just do it. I don't even care. I don't even care if you're reading something else. Stop and go read Sailor Moon, because I said so. Also, I did a huge comic book haul recently, so you should watch that. I'll stick it somewhere. Okay, bye. Love your faces.